A federal civil lawsuit against Kyle Rittenhouse and some others like Facebook, the Kenosha Guard, the Boogaloo Boys, some guy named Balk, and a few other people was dropped earlier this week. Now, let me be very clear from the outset, this has nothing to do with Kyle's upcoming criminal trial. The criminal case is still active, and I suspect Kyle will be levying a very strong case for self-defense in that upcoming trial. I will be covering it. By the way, I'm Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I'm a lawyer and a legal and political commentator here on YouTube. If you like following legal and political issues, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss anything. All right, so I'll be covering that. This is something completely different, something I actually didn't really know existed. I mean, I figured this would exist at some point in some manifestation, which would be a civil suit against Kyle Rittenhouse related to the Kenosha event where he shot 3 people and ended up killing 2 of them. Because even if you can't get someone in criminal court, oftentimes some family member of an alleged victim will bring a civil case to try and get some sort of restitution. I figured that would happen. I just didn't realize that it already had. But this case was actually filed back on September 22nd of 2020. And it kind of sat around and didn't really do much in public. There was a little bit of coverage on it, but not a whole lot, because not a lot was actually happening. But several plaintiffs did bring these charges against several defendants. And one of the plaintiffs is actually the life partner of Mr. Huber. Huber is the second guy that Kyle Rittenhouse ended up shooting. He's the guy who thought it was a good idea to chase Kyle down with a skateboard and strike him while reaching for his gun. Kyle didn't like that idea and ended up shooting him, which led to his death. Okay? So this is not legal advice. This is personal advice. If someone has a gun, don't hit them and try to take the gun from them unless you think you might want to be shot. That is just kind of how that thing can work out. All right? Not usually a good plan. But that is what happened among several other things that night. Now, what are they actually suing for is a very good question, because you might think they'd be suing for wrongful death or something like that. But no, that's not what this suit was about at all. This suit was actually about, how do I word this? It was about taking the rights away from African Americans. I guess that's what was happening in Kenosha. And to do this, to get to this claim, they used actually a very old law that comes back from the Reconstruction era, the period just after the Civil War. And this is a civil rights law. It's 42 USC 1985, and it's subsection 3. And it basically says that if someone deprives someone of their legally protected rights, you can sue under this section. Now, this law was intended to prevent people who were angry about the events of the Civil War from lashing out against African Americans, or preventing them from voting, or preventing them from fleeing southern states, or several other things. They had rights that were recognized by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. These were new things in the federal Constitution. It was a different time. So this law was passed to allow someone to bring a civil cause of action if those rights were deprived under that context. I'm not quite sure that Kenosha is the appropriate place, but that is what is alleged in the lawsuit, okay? And if you're wondering how Kyle Rittenhouse, who ended up shooting 3 white people, was involved in obstructing or preventing the free travel or suppressing the rights of African Americans, you can be as baffled as the rest of us. But this is emblematic of the case in whole. I read through the case, and it's patently ridiculous. The entire case is frivolous, it's poorly drafted, and it reeks of incompetence on behalf of the counsel for the plaintiffs. And that is where the drama really lies, though. Now, I said that not much was happening publicly earlier. And that's true. Not much was happening publicly with this case. But behind the scenes, there was a little spat brewing. There was the lead counsel for this case, and there was a co-counsel. Now, the co-counsel ended up drafting the initial documents. And somewhere around election time, the co-counsel actually made a motion to withdraw. And the motion to withdraw is rather funny. It's a little bit long to go over in a short video, but I'll be covering it in an upcoming live stream, which I do basically every weeknight at 11 p.m. Come check one out. Anyway, so this document gets wrapped up, as is perfectly characteristic of this type of lawsuit. It gets wrapped up in fighting over what's more important: civil rights, fighting white supremacy, toxic masculinity, and allegations of hysterical womanhood. And no, I'm not joking. It's a funny thing. So between these two lawyers, they get into an argument over the appropriate scope of representation for the co-counsel. And there seems to be a lot of disagreement. There wasn't any contract drafted initially, and this is all just a mess. It reeks of incompetence or mistakes from both parties, if we're being charitable. But long story short, the co-counsel withdrew from the case around election time, and following that, there was one amended complaint, which is still an absolute disaster, and it proceeded to now, in which the case has been fully dismissed. And this case was dismissed by the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs have asked the judge to allow them to completely shut it down, and they have said they were dismissing it with prejudice, which means this case isn't coming back from these plaintiffs against these defendants. And neither is any really similar case. They have basically shut down their avenues for recovery against these people. So, why Kyle Rittenhouse? Why the Kenosha Guard, the Boogaloo Boys, Facebook? The all-encompassing reason at the end of the day is racism, right? All of these people are accused of conspiring together and being racist in their attack against people who were protesting in the wake of shooting of Jacob Blake by police officers. Now, in this complaint, they talk about the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was unarmed and shot in the back. As we know now, as we knew then, but as we definitely know now, according to the refusal to prosecute the police officer, Jacob Blake was not unarmed when he was shot, and he was actively involved in committing a felony. So this wasn't really like the innocent person being shot that you sometimes hear about, and those cases do happen. Jacob Blake, not the best candidate. Not the best candidate for this. But that, of course, led to the civil unrest in Kenosha, which eventually ended up with Kyle Rittenhouse shooting 3 people, as we discussed before. But this case is over. It's done. I didn't know it existed. I figure you probably didn't either, and it's an interesting study in legal incompetence and a non-cognizable claim. Now, they may have some other claims that they would make against Kyle Rittenhouse, but I would humbly suggest that it may be better to wait until something happens in the criminal trial, because right now, all of their stuff looks pretty ridiculous. Anyway, tell me what you think. I don't know. Did you guys know about this case? Do you want to hear about what happened with the lawyers? Because that drama is pretty funny. Anyway, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Thanks a bunch, and until next time, peace. Peace.